Yo, 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 this is John O'Brien, and this is the Money and Wealth podcast series on iHeartRadio and Black Effect Network. And today we're tackling a really important topic that, frankly, even I might have taken for granted that everybody just sort of knew and had figured out and understood. And for that, I apologize. Let's deal with 700 credit scores. That's right. The 700 credit score phenomena I keep talking about. I keep talking about that if your day is not about God or love, your day is about money. That the new color is not black or white or red or blue, as in race or politics. That the new color is green, as in US currency. I have talked about my mother, Juanita Smith, and how powerful credit scores have been or were to her life. She's since passed away, gone to glory, been promoted. How she had a credit score of 854 back when the credit scores went that high. I think they cap out at 850 now. Really set her life free to do as she liked. I talked about how my dad had more hustle than my mother. My dad was a natural hustler. He had built with my mother a little monument to up from nothing wealth into South Central LA. We owned our own home, which I now believe was approved with my mother's credit, by the way. We built an 8-unit apartment building, same thing. My dad's hustle economics, my mother's credit. Um, my dad's credit was so bad he used to call it credit. He said his credit was bad. That's Johnny Will Smith, great, great man. He's also since passed on to glory. We had a gas station at Western and Vernon, southeast corner, if I'm not mistaken. We owned our own home, cement contracting business, a nursery business. I mean, we were balling. Then how is it that my mother, working an hourly job after that, McDonnell Douglas Aircraft for 32 years, ended up being a millionaire, and which I was the executor of her estate, so I know that's true. And how is it my father ended up broke and I ended up taking care of him the last 10 years of his life? He lost everything essentially based on credit. How's that possible if my dad was a better hustler? Because the difference between a hustler and a businessman or a businesswoman is paperwork, not just paperwork with the county, the city, the state, the federal government, structured paperwork, but paperwork in your head, paperwork in the sense of it's a business, not busyness. It's about doing the details behind the sales. A large part of those details deal with, well, the Latin word for credit is credito, which means credibility. So your credit has to do with your credibility. You're just showing credibility in the marketplace of finance in this particular example. By the way, capital comes from the Latin root word capitas, which broadly defined means knowledge in the head. And banking is a trust business. It's about trust. So none of these things directly have anything to do with money. But what do we talk about in our communities? In my community, get that bag, get that dollar, get that cash, get that money, get that dollar, as I said. It's about money. It's about that green. It's about that thing. It's about looking for love in all the wrong places. Because all currency is, all money is a exchange of value. No different than a check. I can write a check on a T-shirt with the routing number and the bank account number because it's really just transferring value. But if your outflow exceeds your inflow, then your overhead will be your downfall. And so if you're making a lot of money and you're spending a lot of money and you start making a lot of money, how do you not go broke? That's why 70% of those in the NFL, as an example, have filed bankruptcy. NFL, I think NFL, and I think broadly speaking, NBA, same. It's over 60% bankruptcy within 5 years. So credit allows you to access capital, knowledge in the head. Capital is codified in the financial sector. Access financial capital knowledge about accessing this capital, using your credito, credibility, to get prime rate financing from banks because they trust you so that you can build wealth in your sleep. You make money during the day. Thank you, Tony Wrestler, again for this great quote. You make money during the day, you build wealth in your sleep. If you don't get that memo, then you're just hustling your whole life. And at some point, when your outflow exceeds your inflow, then your overhead will be your downfall. If you make a dollar, spend $1.50, the more money you make, the broker you get. But you don't realize it because you're not managing the paperwork. You're not looking at financial statements, income statements, cash flow statements, balance sheets, credit reports. You're not noticing that you're not paying your bills and that as a result of that, you're paying the highest rate for credit in the country and you have the lowest access to credit in the country. And that cost of capital eats into your profit, which means you may actually be making a lot of sales, but not making a lot of profit, if any. And if you have a profit margin of 5% or 10% or 15% on your product, but you're paying 15 or 20% for the cost of capital, simple math is you're actually losing money if you're fully leveraged in that business or even mostly leveraged in that business. Let's come back, let's bring this back to home. Uh, Half of black folks, now this my podcast is for everybody, right? If you're Latino, this applies to you. If you're white middle class, this applies to you. If you're white rural poor, this applies to you. If you're Indian on Indian reservation, this applies to you. If you're black in Africa, this applies to you. If you're Asian, this applies to you. Certainly, if you're a woman trying to come up, this applies to you. Certainly, if you're African American, you should be paying attention to what I'm saying because I'm African American and I've made it up from nothing. And and unfortunately, African Americans lead the bottom statistics of the worst areas in finance, which means that if we've been doing so much with so little for so long, we can almost do anything with nothing. That means that if we improve on any of these indexes, my God, the economy and just explodes positively. And we don't have any choice but to do better. Half of all black people, not half of poor people, half of all black people in America, the richest economy on the planet, black people who've inspired people of color and black people all around, more than 1 billion black people all around the world, who inspired them with culture, community, creativity. If we say it's cool anywhere in the world, as I've said before. That same group who were never given a lesson on capitalism and commerce and money, half of all black people have a credit score below 620. Let that sink in for a minute. I didn't say poor people. Half of all black people have a credit score below 620. Let that think. Now I want you to think about this. That means that my credit score and my wife's credit score and my, I don't know, my cousin's credit score, my brother Killer Mike's credit score, our credit scores are, let's say, above 700, 750, right? But then our cousin, our nephews, our nieces, people that we love, but didn't go to the financial literacy coaching classes, their credit score may be 500. So the top credit scores get pulled down on average from the bottoms. That means the average is 620, which means it's really worse than what I'm saying. But let's just take this as an example. Half of all African Americans, so 20 million of 40 million on average, have a credit score below 620. That means when we wake up in the morning, even though we're talking about police brutality and racism and discrimination and what's going on in Washington, D.C., and all these things that are occupying our mind space, in many cases, rightly so, that also means that half of us wake up in the morning locked out of the free enterprise system completely. And if your day's not about God or love, as I said earlier, your day's about money. You go to the club tonight after you listen to this podcast and do your work, and you meet this fine woman. Oh man, she's fine. He's this handsome dude. Oh, girl said, oh, he's so handsome. What's your name? I don't know. What's your name? Okay, cool. What's up? Then the next question, what's your credit score? And I'm only partly kidding, right? Because when the looks drop, when the looks fade away and the body drops, that's your business partner for life. marriage ultimately came out of business and transitioned into spirituality. And really, in many cases, simplistically, many people just think it's about, oh my God, she's fine, she's sexy, and it's going to this is a temporary decision to make last you a lifetime. You can't afford to get this one wrong because in a relationship, 2 plus 2 should equal 6, 8, or 10, not 4. Not 2 plus 2 equals 4, 6, 8, or 10. If you're not better together, what are you doing? Friendships, partnerships, marriages, all kind of relationships. Back to credit. So there's not. So some people, somebody said, okay, John, you've now mentioned that half of black people have a credit score below 620. What does that mean? That means you can't get a decent car loan at 620. I mean, you can go to a auto dealership, an auto dealer lot, in a secondary used car auto dealership in an underserved community where I grew up, and try to get that previously owned Mercedes, but you're not buying it if your credit is 580, 550, 610, 620. You're not getting a Mercedes, you're getting a Mercedes payments. It's a mobile bomb. It's going to explode on you as you're driving down the road. And that car dealership makes their money three ways. They make their money on car sales to a lesser degree, on finance department and warranties to a greater degree, and they really make their money on maintenance. So they hope that the car either breaks down or you break down. Either the car breaks down, you got to bring it back for maintenance, or you break down and you got to bring it back because it's a repossession and they get to resell it to somebody else and cha-ching all over again. You can't get a home loan, not a prime rate loan, below 700 credit score at 680, 650, right? You can't get, and by the way, you should never ask what the payment is when there's an interest rate attached. Black folks, brown folks, poor white folks, we tend to be paymentized. We tend to be paymentized. What's the payment? You never ask what the payment is when there's an interest rate attached, and certainly if it's 5 zeros attached or more, you never ask what the payment is when there's an interest rate attached. You ask what's that interest rate, because at 5 or 6 zeros, it's going to eat you alive over time. And during the mortgage crisis, folks didn't pay attention. Some people signed up to adjustable rate mortgages, which means that the payments went up and down depending on where interest rates went, and interest rates fluctuated. Never to your advantage, by the way. It always went up. Or worse, you got a negative amortization mortgage, which means that every payment you made on that mortgage, you owed more the next payment than you did the last because it's negative amortization, which means versus positive amortization, which means the payment's going down a little bit with every mortgage payment. Negative amortization, see, this is why financial literacy is a civil rights issue of this generation. When you know better, you do better. It's why making smart sexy is real, because you got to know what amortization means, negative and positive in this example. Otherwise, somebody's going to rob you in broad daylight and separate you from your wallet. A negative amortization mortgage over time just grows in balance. How do you ever get out of it? A lot of people signed up to them in 2008, 2009 economic crisis. And adjustable rate mortgage. You want a fixed rate mortgage at prime rates. You can't get that unless with good credit. Go back to half of black folks have a credit score below 620 again. You have a great business idea. You can't get business loan below 700. It's risky credit. It's the riskiest form of bank credit. So you think the bank has discriminated against you? Maybe they did. I think it's more likely because I know modern day banks, most of them are publicly traded or highly regulated, and I met these people who run most of these banks, and they're on balance really good people, and they want to make a good loan, because if they don't make a good loan, they cannot make a good profit. So they want you to be well qualified and to pay the loan back. They don't want the property. They can't do anything with the property. That they're not a repo company. They're a bank. They make money on the spread between what they're paying depositors for interest on their savings and what they're and the efficiency of running the management of and administration of the bank, and the interest rate they charge you on the cost of money. The difference, the delta, they call it, the difference is profit, right? And if you have great credit, you negotiate the best rates, they get the slimmest profit, but they also don't have to chase you for their money. So it's like clipping a coupon. It's just rinse and repeat. The bank loves people with good credit because it's guaranteed income. Again, Everybody wins. I've often said a good negotiation is where everybody walks away from the table slightly annoyed because nobody got everything they wanted. The bank didn't get the most profit, and the borrower didn't get the lowest rate, but they both got enough to be satisfied. I just negotiated the sale of one of my collector cars, and I wanted a price of X. The buyer was able to show a legitimate thing that needed to be fixed because it's a previously owned vehicle, and I wasn't thrilled about that, but the buyer had prime credit pre-approved from their bank. They were a doctor, and so that incentivized me to go ahead and take the discount on the sale of the car because I had a great buyer where I knew was going to be no drama. He's already pre-approved. The deal's going to close very quickly. I have a time value of my money. I don't want to be keep messing around with selling this car, reselling the car, negotiating with 5, 8, 10 different buyers, or even 3 or 2 buyers. Here's one buyer I absolutely know can buy the car. He's agreed to the purchase price, but he wants a discount based on a negotiable item that I found legitimate. And I said yes, because he was a prime credit buyer. When you are a prime credit buyer, you walk in the room ready to drop the mic. So half of us have a credit score below 620, which means no matter, again, the people who provide credit want to provide it to you. I'm not talking about hard money lenders and these Shylocks and all these folks trying to separate you from your wallet. I'll get to that in a second because I've got unfortunately, some recent examples of that in my extended world. Folks who come to me trying to get help at the last minute. But I'm just telling you that these banks, corporations, credit providers, they love folks with excellent credit for the reasons I've already mentioned. And I want you to be one of them. And the great thing about getting your credit score up is it's in your control. Like, I can't control racism, discrimination, sexism, bias, whether somebody likes you or not. But what I can say is if you go to that computer at midnight tonight and your credit is above 700 and you're trying to get a loan or a line of credit below, let's say $100,000, and you got a job, right? And you can afford it, the chances of the bank telling you yes is extremely high. I know because I've done it. The computer doesn't know what color you are, doesn't know what race you are, doesn't know what gender you are. At midnight, you hitting that button, that application at midnight. The computer, the analytics, the robotics, and increasingly the AI, just goes through a process. And if you meet the process, the answer is yes. Isn't that liberating? That means it's a whole new world. I've actually said this boldly. If you want to stabilize America, just raise credit scores 100 points. I know that sounds crazy. Every mayor listening to this, if your mayor in your city council person, your governor is not listening to this, send it to them, ask them to listen to it. We got all this trauma and drama and division in this country, Republicans and Democrats and rural and urban and all this, the rich and poor. Look, just raise credit scores 100 points in your neighborhood and the entire reality changes. And I'm going to go through the data in a minute to prove what I'm saying. So tell your mayor to start this video at minute 18 and as I unpack this story. Let me tell you real quickly what happens when you have horrible credit or you're financially illiterate, sorry. So a friend of mine, I can't get into much detail, otherwise you might figure out who this is, and I don't want to embarrass them. It's not because it's not helpful to them. But they own prime real estate in an inner city neighborhood. They have a really successful business. They own the real estate now. They own one piece of real estate. They're trying to buy 2 other pieces of real estate on the same street. This area, I guarantee you, the prices are going to do nothing but go up. In fact, if I had a chance to buy this property in question, I would have bought it and just sat on it. He went to a hard money lender, meaning a non-prime lender. It is what it sounds like, hard money, hard expensive. I don't know why. I don't know why actually he was having a problem with a bank because he didn't. Again, the difference between a great hustler and a bad business person, or is bad paperwork. Or just between a hustler and a business person is paperwork. And he didn't. He had made the payments, so I hear, but he didn't comply with what's called loan covenants, and the bank foreclosed on him. Supposedly, I don't know the details, but that's what I was told. Well, covenants in a bank loan agreement are important. It's part of the agreement. Again, credibility, it's financial literacy. Anyway, the bank bops him out of the bank. He has to now go, he's in foreclosure. He's trying to put, he doesn't want to file bankruptcy. I don't want to file bankruptcy. He's not trying to, he goes and finds a hard money lender who tells him what he wants to hear, gives him a horrible rate. My dad did this, by the way. My dad would respect in an underserved neighborhood has an overly important equation. My dad did not feel seen. My dad did not feel respected by mainstream America. So when the mortgage broker would come down our neighborhood, if you were offering 2% interest rate, but you were rude to him, he would kick you out. He wouldn't talk to you. But if you were offering an 8 or 10 or 12% interest rate, but you were Mr. Smith, and how are you today? And how's your family? And oh, I brought you a pie, brought you a cake, and oh, I'm so so you're pretty. Your house is so pretty, and oh, you dress so well. Oh, there's some nice shoes you have on. Trying to really just sweet talk my dad into a horrible deal, which he did. And my dad signed as what was a payment on that loan, not what was the interest rate, signed it, and the whole thing imploded, and we lost everything, as I mentioned earlier. So let's get into this. Because I've said something pretty bold. Raise credit scores 100 points in your neighborhood, in your family, and you'll see everything change. So your credit score isn't just about borrowing money. It's the single most important number in your financial life and in and in your community's life too. Frankly, I would argue that a 700 credit score is at least as important as a 4-year education. I know that is, and I want you to get a 4-year education, by the way, or a higher education. Um, uh, so I want you to get this credit score because, and somebody's going to then say, let me just get this out of the way. Isn't credit bad? No, no, no. Bad credit's bad, right? Bad debt is bad. There's good debt and there's bad debt. I cover that in another podcast. Go back and listen to that one. Good debt is tied to something that tied to an asset that it may appreciate. Bad debt's tied to an asset that or something that will probably depreciate, go down in value. You want assets that appreciate, that not that depreciate. Can I get an amen? So you have good debt and bad debt, right? So there's not a successful city. It's not a successful. Think about Los Angeles, New York, Atlanta, right? As examples, Seattle, whatever. There's not Minneapolis. Is not a successful state. It's not a successful government, including ours. It's not a successful millionaire, multimillionaire, centimillionaire, hundred millionaire, billionaire, multi-billionaire, successful corporation, Fortune 500 company, that didn't do it on the back of good debt. Please hear me. That's a drop the mic. There's no successful entity, person, individual, or initiative that didn't do it on the back of good debt or back of money, and hopefully good debt. I guess you got lucky and with bad debt and just hustled enough and got lucky, and then you stumbled into good debt at some point. But at some point, you've got to get to good debt. Otherwise, the initiative, whatever you're riding on, has to explode. And debt is allows you to sort of responsibly leverage the returns of an investment. I'm getting off into something else. Let me stay focused on this credit thing. So credit scores for communities, 700 credit scores in particular. I want to thank, by the way, Experian for giving us the data along with the U.S. Census and others to build this Hope Financial Wellness Index. You can go to your computer right now, type in Operation Hope, go to our website, or just type in Hope Financial Wellness Index or Hope Credit Score Index or Hope 700 Credit Score Index, and you can this will all pull up the Hope Financial Wellness Index. Type in your zip code, I'll tell you how you're living. You type in your zip code and that database, I'll tell you what your credit score is in your neighborhood, and I'll tell you how you're living. And as I've said before, you hang around 9 broke people, you're going to be the 10th. So what does a 500 credit score neighborhood look like? It's a check casher next to a payday loan lender, next to a rent-to-own store, next to a title lender, next to a liquor store, next to a pawn shop. Can I get an amen? And a church down the street trying to make you feel a little bit better once a week so you don't go crazy and go postal on Monday, right? I'm joking, but I'm serious. Like your church is your neighborhood therapist. And we think this is normal. This is not normal. This is target marketing in a 500 credit score neighborhood. And just to prove this is not about race or class or any of that other stuff, right? And how this is a great equalizer and the great empowerment tool if you get it right, is that same example I just gave you: check casher, payday loan lender, rent to own store, title lender, liquor store, pawn shop. That's also the same thing you see in a white, rural, poor neighborhood. I was talking about black and brown urban neighborhoods as the prime example here, and that's what I'm going through in the data I'm about to show you. But you see the same thing in a poor white rural neighborhood. Can I get an amen? It's the same thing around the mouth of a military base, because those military personnel cannot have bad credit and have a security clearance. Am I going too fast? Like, this is a really powerful episode, and I really want you to get it. So if you got to hit reverse on this, or play it again, and play it 2 or 3 times, then you should do it. So what is credit really, right? Um, Credit equals trust plus your payment history. What a credit score ranges 300 to 850. My credit score is high 700s, low 800s. My wife's is over 800 because she's got less drama going on financially than I do. I've got a lot of stuff that I'm literally financing, and so it looks like I got a crack at addiction or something with my dang on Amex Black Card, because I put Operation Hope and other things on my Black Card because I don't have an expense account. I have an expense report, which means that I just get reimbursed for proper expenses for my different entities. But I initially just charge all that on my Black Card, so I carry a very large balance. As a result of that, the credit bureaus, rightly so, which put a higher weight, higher measurement on credit scores on consumer debt. They rightly so say, well, this guy, even though he makes a lot of money, he's got a high net worth. I don't like his consumer debt level, so I'm gonna ding his credit score a little bit. And by the way, you have different credit scores for different things. You have a different credit score for consumer credit cards, then for auto loans, then for mortgage loans, then for small business loans. These are different formulas for credit scores. I'm giving you the consumer credit, the basic one, right now. Again, listen to this over and over again for parts that you missed. Here's some myths. So why is 700 credit score a great number? Because it gives you prime credit access, right? Lower interest rates and wealth building opportunities. What are some myths? Credit isn't about being rich, it's about being responsible. That is a buster, because it is exactly that. It is not about being rich, it's about being responsible. But people think that credit somehow is tied to being rich. And we've wrongly thought that that being taught in our churches and in my neighborhoods I grew up in, that money was evil. No, money and debt are not evil. The love of money is evil, and bad debt should be evil. Bad capitalism is like slavery. I mean, literally, slavery was bad capitalism, drug dealing, all that stuff. So that should be avoided. So it's the good stuff you want, and that has to do with your intentionality, your knowledge, and your moves. Your zip code predicts more about your financial health than your genetic code. Where zip code you grew up in, born in, or live in, will have an enormous impact on your life. Again, I'm going to come back. And I'm gonna go through it. I'm gonna go to it right now. Like, let me explain exactly what I'm talking about. Let me take the city of St. Louis, Missouri. You can pull these examples up from the Hope Financial Wellness Index, by the way, online. So the Hope Community Credit Index for St. Louis, Missouri, and I was born in East St. Louis, which is even worse. The numbers are worse in East St. Louis than St. Louis, but in fact, you may get some of that here. The following data are from the neighborhoods of Carr Square and Clayton, St. Louis. These two neighborhoods are less than 9 minutes apart, 9 miles apart. So as I go through these examples, if you see a snippet of this online, type in if this is your city, right? And say amen if you're listening to this on while you're jogging, whatever. If I've hit a nerve for where you live, okay. So Carr Square, CARR, zip code 63106, average credit score is 602. Clayton, zip code 63105, credit score 745. Now get this. Median household income in Carr, $21,475. In Clayton, 9 miles away, $120,000 basically, 119,446. Unemployment rate, 8.3% in Carr. In Clayton, 2.4%. Night and day. Home ownership rate, 11.9%. In Carr, 11.9%. In Clayton, not excellent, but much better, 56.4%. I wonder whether in Clayton, where there's a lot of multifamily rentals and commercial buildings versus single family homes, I may look in that uh, to find that information out. By the way, the average credit score for average homeownership rate for African Americans 44%. Average homeownership rate in the country for white Americans 75%. Last time I checked, that delta, that difference of 30% is generational wealth because the number one way you build wealth in America is home ownership. Um, Median household income in Carr, again, the 602 area zip code, 602 credit score neighborhood is 186,700. Not bad, but the average home value in Clayton 735,500. Now, why are these so different? Back in the day, redlining, where'd that come from? Did it come from banks? That's what you were told. Banks discriminated against you? No, it came from the federal government. The FHA, Federal Housing Authority, in the first part of the 20th century, discriminated against black and brown neighborhoods, and it was really sad because these folks literally couldn't live anyplace else, and they came up from the South, and they were forced in these areas, and versus giving folks opportunity, they gave them grief, and then the federal FHA wouldn't guarantee a mortgage in that neighborhood because they said it was crime ridden and dangerous. Well, what do you expect when you put a bunch of poor people with no opportunity and no education, and they just came from slavery and Jim Crow? Hello. Anyway, uh, they didn't. They refused to finance a mortgage. And what's the government's job if not to offset um, unintentional societal risk like this for people who did nothing wrong? But anyway, they refused to finance a mortgage, insure a mortgage in that poor, so-called poor neighborhood, black and brown neighborhood. But where they insure it in the suburbs where whites had moved, that meant that banks, again, common sense, where are you going to put your mortgage? At a risky area with no mortgage insurance from the government, where you're guaranteed to get your money back, or from a suburban neighborhood where you're guaranteed to get your money back either through the borrower and the fact they got great credit typically or better credit ratings. But more so, the government is said, I'll guarantee your loan. Of course, you're going to go to the suburbs. So that meant there was more transactions, there was more capital flows, more fluidity of money flowing in that area, um, more economic activity going in that area, higher incomes in that area, more services in that area, and the values popped up in those areas. More people buying and selling in that area for the reasons I just mentioned. You can get a mortgage, you can get mortgage insurance. And where did economic stall? Poor, struggling black and brown neighborhoods that were redlined and they were green lined in the other areas, which depressed values. Okay, I'm going to say focused again on this credit thing. But as you can tell, I can go in so many different directions at one time on one podcast. But I got 15 more minutes. I want to cover a lot of ground here. Property crimes in Carr Square, 60 per 1,000 property crimes, 62.3 compared to 14.0 in Clayton. Violent crimes per 1,000 residents, 15.7 versus 0.07 or 0.7, 0.7, basically non-existent in Clayton versus almost 20% violent crimes per 1,000 in Carr. High school graduation rates. Actually, this is not bad number. 82.1% in Carr, 97.1% in Clayton. 97% basically means they went to college, just to be clear. Life expectancy. Again, this is completely predictable. You can start to see this as a trend line. 71 years of age in Carr, 83 years, 0.5 years in Clayton. So what I found is, and this is a part that this is not an exact science, but I found this to be true looking at the data. For every 50-point gain in credit score above 500, you live 5 more years. Isn't that crazy? Right? So the average I found is that in a 500 credit score neighborhood, you live to about 61 years of age. In a 700 credit score neighborhood, you live to 81 years of age. About 5-year extension of life for every 50-point increase in your credit score. It's not about the credit score, by the way. It's about the trending indicator of hope, well-being, belief, faith, confidence, joy, like, your uplift, like whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can't, you're right. I can't guarantee that being positive is going to make you successful, but I absolutely guarantee that being negative is going to make you fail. Disease is often dis-ease, right? Again, my wife Shachel talks about wellness and health, wealth, right? These things go together. All right, let's talk about Atlanta. I'm gonna go through this data really quick. so you can see it's different cities. Again, it's all from the same index, Hope Financial Wellness Index, which I expect you to go to your website and type in your zip code yourself. Forest Park 30297, 629 credit score. It's not that bad actually. Virginia Highlands 30306, which has gotten gentrified. And by the way, gentrification has nothing to do with race. Gentrification is literally defined as a movement of middle class values. So it could be black middle class values, Latino, women, white, doesn't really matter, right? It's just what tends to happen is that folks are looking for a value who are Caucasian, young and well educated, not racist, see black and brown neighborhoods as cool and hip, and it's the music they listen to and the food they like, and prices are right, cheap. So they come and buy there, and then they start bidding up the prices in the way in which I described about the suburbs earlier. Are we solving a lot of problems in one podcast, by the way? I just described gentrification, redlining. Okay. My friend Melody Hobson would say, you deal with math, you get I say if you deal with the math and the economics, you get racism for free, right? You just zero that stuff out. You deal with the economics, you get racism for free. You solve poverty, you solve poverty for free. But she would say that she likes math because it doesn't have an opinion, which is what I'm saying here. Forest Park, uh, median household income 45,000. I'm gonna start generalizing these numbers so I can get through this. Virginia Highlands 133,000. Again, these are 15 miles apart. So less than a 20-minute drive, 15, 30-minute maximum drive. These are, urban city miles, right? Not highway miles. Unemployment rate, 6.7% in Forest Park versus 4.5. That's actually not bad. Again, these numbers aren't horrible. I'm going to tell you horrible in a minute. Home ownership rate, 35.5 versus basically 60%. Median home value, 121,000 versus basically 800,000. Violent crimes per thousand, 9.5 versus 2.0. High school graduation rates, 76.4 versus 97.1. What did I say 97 meant? Basically, you went to college. Again, look at these jumps based on where the credit score starts at 629, call it 630. You start to see the life expectancy rise up, right? And the violent crimes are less, and all the disparities are less. It's still bad. Life expectancy 72 years versus 82 years. Okay, let's give you some really, I'll give you a really stark example here. Um, um, Let me see. Let's talk about. Uh, let's see what Baltimore has to say. This is, so Belair Edison, which is 21213, Baltimore, Maryland. Roland Park is 21210. Again, I expect you to say amen when I talk about your area. These areas are less than 6 miles apart. Uh, Median household income, $50,000 versus $108,000, so double. Unemployment rate, 6.3 versus 4.7. Homeownership rate, not that bad of a difference, 53% versus 61%. Home values, though, 134,000 versus 520,000. Violent crimes per thousand, 12.4 versus 3.7. See the consistency here? Graduation rates, 83% versus 97.9%. Again, that 97% is consistent in those high credit score areas, aren't they? Basically, 100% highly educated went to college. And I'd bet two-parent households, by the way, versus single-parent households in the hood, DA-HOOD. 70% of Black households run by women. That's not a mistake. It's not an accident. It's basically, a community in that's just trying to survive. It includes my mother, by the way. Life expectancy, again, 66.4 years versus 84.3 years. Okay. In Chicago, you have, I'm doing this one by memory. Um, Chicago, you had Lincoln Park, and then you had, I'm blanking on the other community's name, but it was a low income area, Garfield Park, I think. I think it's Garfield. Yeah, Garfield Park and Lincoln Park, 15 minutes apart. You'll tell me in the comments, I'm sure. You guys don't let me get away with anything. I'm doing this from memory. And, Lincoln Park was 750, 770 credit score or something. And Garfield Park was toe up from the flow up. Everything was like high 500. You lived at 61 years of age in Garfield Park. you live to 81, 85 years of age plus in Lincoln Park, depending on the area. And the numbers, violent crime was off the chain. Like it was just a complete dichotomy, right? Let's look at Dallas is not going to be that bad, but I'll do Dallas because somebody listening want me to cover that. Cedar Crest, 75203. Highland Park, 75205. This is Dallas, Texas. 627 versus 745. Credit scores. Median household income, 46,000 versus 188,000. Unemployment rate, 7.5 versus 4.6. Home ownership rate, 37% versus 60%. Median household income, wow, 125,000 versus 1.5 million. These communities are what, 7 miles apart? Crazy. Violent crimes per thousand, 12.3 versus 2.7%. Here we go again. High school graduation rates, 66.7% to 98.6%. Essentially, you went to college, higher education. Life expectancy, 73 years versus 83 plus years. You see, I like math. It doesn't have an opinion. Like I'm not cherry picking. I'm not giving you specialized data. I'm telling you the way TI is. Detroit, Michigan, Jefferson Chalmers. I'm sorry, Detroiters, if I missed that, if I mangled that, right? Jefferson Chalmers, at 48215 zip code versus Grosse Point 48230. These are neighbors are 2 miles apart. Okay. Household income 33,000 versus 131,000. Credit score 620 versus 746. 2 miles apart. Unemployment rate 12.9% versus 3.1. I love this dramatic difference 2 miles apart. Unemployment rate 12.9 versus 3.1. Home ownership rate 49% versus 77.7. That's black versus, I can guarantee you that's black neighborhood versus a white neighborhood. I guarantee you. Somebody tell me in the comments when you see this clips of this on social media. I know you can't do that on the podcast itself, but when you see clips of this on social media or on YouTube, when we do release it there, we release it every episode about a week after it's released on the podcast. So please comment where you can, because I do want to get an amen or a correction. Violent crimes per thousand, 27.8 versus 1.8, right? High school graduation rates, 84.2% versus 98.1%. Again, 98.1, you went to college. You can't make this up. Coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous. So it's an Andrew Young quote. Life expectancy, again, 620. Credit score is 74 years of age versus 746 credit score of 81 years of age, right? Every 50 points, about give or take, 5 years of life expectancy. I'm trying to find one of these cities that has like a really dramatic difference. Um, 'cause a lot of these cities I'm going through, uh, they're just going to repeat what I'm saying. Here's one it's Oakland, California. Uptown 94612 compared to Rock Ridge 94618. That's a 698 credit score versus a 765 credit score. You say, okay, they're pretty close. And this is only 4 miles apart, right? This is pretty close. So let's see if the data holds up. $77,000 income versus a 205,000 household income. That's everybody in the house, by the way. 6.4 unemployment rate versus 4.6. Not night and day, right? But different. Home ownership rate, wow, 10.2% versus 66%. Hello, 2 miles apart. Median home value, 814,000, not bad, based compared to 1.8 million. Violent crimes per thousand, look at this, 26.5% versus 4.0%. Night and day, 2 miles apart. High school graduation rates, 87.3%, so it's measuring up as the credit score goes up. But where's the 765 credit score neighborhood? Where's that high school graduation rates? 97.9%. Can't make this up. Exactly the same. Like literally 96, 97, 98%. Every one of them. That's essentially college. 2-parent households. Again, probably black people, Latino people, Asian people. It's everybody. It's green people. Life expectancy, hello, 80 years versus 84.2 years. So there you go. It just, even though the gap on expectancy gapped up, mostly, some of the other stuff did not gap because there's still a mindset shift change, right? See if I can, and by the way, in these communities, Operation Hope It's raising credit scores 34 to 58 points, lowering debt 2,500 to $3,800, increasing savings $1,500 on average through our Hope Financial coaches. So we're moving the needle in all these neighborhoods. So you go see our Hope Financial coach in the neighborhood where you live. Washington D.C. Foggy Bottom 20006. It's actually not a good example. We should have been Anacostia. Barnaby Woods 20015 755 credit score, and again, 80-year life expectancy versus 85 years, right? Um, and violent crimes per thousand 5.0 versus point zero point zero point 0.3. Homeownership rate 255,000 versus 1.2 million, right? Homeownership rate 8.1% versus 77%. Unemployment rate 12% versus 2.6%. I'm sure it's even more dramatic in Anacostia. We have Philadelphia. Um, Again, here's this is a decent one because I want to show you the life expectancy. 626 credit score in Brewery Town 19121 versus Old City 19106, right? 626 credit score versus 743 credit score. Median household income in Brewery Town 36,000. Old City 129,000. Unemployment rate 14.6% versus 3.1%. So when I talk with confidence about this stuff, now you know why. Because this stuff just jumps off the page to you. Like it's completely obvious. That's why I love talking about this stuff because this is like a go. This is like a hidden golden goose or something. Like we can solve our problems economically, and it'll solve most of our social problems because most of our problems are at bottom economic. If you don't have capital as an equity, because through inherited wealth, then access capital through credit, good credit, and use it for smart stuff like buying a home, starting a business, buying some stock. If you're gonna, I'm not saying use credit to buy stock, but I've done it before. Um, but not risky credit, risky stock. Anyway, uh, I think you're starting to get why I'm so excited about this civil rights movement, SILVER, from civil rights to silver rights, from the streets to the suites, it's solving problems from the shoulders up because this data is unimpeachable and it's completely race, political, emotional, neutral. Just if you do this, you'll win. All right. Again, back to Philadelphia. Homeownership rate 33% in Brewery Town, Old City 45.5%. Median household income essentially doubled, 250,000 to 528,000 between Brewery Town and Old City. Violent crimes per thousand, can't make this up, 19.0 versus 3.9. I didn't know this before I'm doing this. You're hearing the data as I'm going through it because I'm so confident in the data. I just told my team, give me 10 examples and don't brief me in advance. High school graduation rates, 87.3% to 95.6%. Life expectancy 69.4% versus 82.9% between the 626 credit score neighborhood and 750 basically credit score neighborhood. Are you starting to get it? Like, are you starting to understand? Like, is your head starting to nod about wow, like this is deep, right? And I can do New Orleans, but I think you sort of get the memo here. And if you're not convinced with the data with this, I mean, you're just not convincible. So here's what I want you to think about now. Um, I want you to think about the success stories that we have at Operation Hope. We went from being denied a car loan to buying their first home. That's wealth creation in real time. Um, and we have countless success stories. I'm going to bring some of them on one of my coming episodes, so you can literally hear and see folks who look like you and have stories like you, so you don't write it off as well. John Bryant, that's different for you. You know, your life was different somehow, even though my life was just like anybody struggling listening to this. I want you to hear from our clients, so we're going to bring those on in coming episodes and unpack their stories. So here's some practical things you can do. The road to 700 because that's the new cool. 700 credit score is the new cool. I go through airports and TSA agents, by the way, scream out their credit score to me. Isn't that cool? As I'm going through security. Um, some practical roads, right? Check your credit score at least weekly. Know your number. I know mine. I've got it on my phone. And Operation Hope can pull it for you. If you listening to this, you go to Hope, go download the Hope and Hand app, go to the Hope uh, Operation Hope website, or call our 1-800 number for Operation Hope. I think it's 1-888-388-HOPE. I think that's the number, 1-888-388-HOPE, but check it on the operational website. Call, sign up for coaching and counseling. They'll give you a free scholarship to start that's worth between $500 and $1,000. They'll pull your credit. They'll do an initial assessment with you, and if you're serious, if you meet certain criteria, then you might qualify for a coaching scholarship for it's worth as much as $5,000 after that. But that's up to the coaches and whether you meet the criteria. And this will change. This stuff will change your life. So we're going to basically put a private banker around you. That's what we do at Operation Hope. We're the private banker for the underserved. We're economic plumbing for the whole dang on country. We're boosting the economic GDP from the middle of the economy down. We're the Federal Reserve of the hood, right? We're economic plumbing. I'm the economic plumber for the underserved neighborhoods. By the way, 20-25% of our coaches in our communities and our offices are in rural neighborhoods, which a lot of white poor poverty. We're on Native American Indian reservations. Thank you, Wells Fargo, for that, and Bank of America. We are in again South. We're in rural areas. Thank you, First Horizon Bank and Regions Bank and Synovus Bank. We're in major. Of course, most of ours are in major MSAs, metropolitan areas. We are in Latino communities. 20% of our coaches speak Latino to their clients. We're for everybody, right? This is everybody's problem. In fact, shoot, we're getting a lot of middle class folks calling us because they got too much month at the end of their money, also, right? Right. Um, uh, Half of those making $100,000 a year are living from paycheck to paycheck. By the way, okay. So check your credit score on a regular basis. Pay your bills on time. Payment history is, it really matters, and it's 35% of your score. Um, Keep balances low relative to your to your limit. So if you have $1,000 credit card, you don't want to spend more than $300 as it relates to that on charges. If you have $100,000 credit card, you don't want to spend more than 30,000. You have a $10,000 credit card, you want to spend more than 3,000. Right now, get it to 5,000. That's still fine, probably, but you will see some degradation in your credit score. You get it to 80% of your limit, you're going to start seeing compression in your credit score for sure, meaning it's going to lower. Um, so credit balance is low in with regard to credit utilization. And by the way, if you need to get two or three credit cards and spread it out, I'm not telling you to do it, but I did it, right. But you got to manage it well, right. And at some whenever I could, I consolidated those credit cards and got one credit card. Um, Let me see here. Don't I use credit unions also as well as banks to access credit. And credit card companies. I've got a Mastercard, I've got a Visa, I've got American Express. I've got so I'm an equal opportunity utilizer, right? Um, don't fear credit, build responsibly. Ask for help. Again, Hope Inside coaches are no cost to you because we scholarshipped you in through Hope Scholarship. So you use this benefit that we raise tens of millions of dollars a year for just for you. This isn't about the 1%. It's about the 100%. If we get to 700 credit scores, all of America rises. It solves all kinds of problems, right? Including political problems. So credit isn't just a number, it's a passport to opportunity. I'm going to, once again tell you to download the Hope in Hand app on your Android or Apple phone and go to our website or call our number and get yourself a Hope Financial coach today. We have 1,500 offices, physical and virtual, in uh, 42 states. We're in half of all Truist branches, as an example. Wells Fargo has ordered 100 locations. I think that's right. B of A has matched them, whatever the number is. B of A has matched them. U.S. Bank, I mean, you name the bank. Flagstar Bank just signed up, Synovus Bank, you name the bank, there's a 80% chance that we have some. BMO Harris, we got some relationship. PNC Bank, and black-owned banks also. We've raised money so it doesn't cost a black-owned institution to have a Hope inside of their institution, which I'm very proud of. Um, so I want you to go find out your credit score today, and if it's not 700, I want you to make a plan to get it there. Because when you rise, your community rises with you, and the opposite is also true. And tell your friends to subscribe to this podcast and check out the next episode or episodes, which include, as I mentioned, testimonials of civil rights to civil rights. Okay, so I was going to let you go, um, and I'm going to let you go because we're at 54 minutes. Um, but I want to tell you about a couple testimonials. I'll do this real quick. So this is my financial coach, Christine Lavulo. She's a Hope Financial Wellness Coach at Hope Inside Delta Airlines in Salt Lake City. We coach all 100,000 Delta airline employees, by the way. Love my partnership with Delta, which is, by the way, the first airline to get to 100 years and the biggest, most profitable airline in the world. So here's what they have to say about their client. Their client already had a great credit score of 703. However, he wanted to set himself up to be in best position possible to reach his goal of home ownership. As we worked together, created budgets and spending plans, he saved $5,300 and paid down $12,340 in revolving debt. This progress boosted his credit score to 786, which positioned him well to apply for a loan, which we helped him with, by the way. Although he was well on his way, we stayed in touch throughout the purchasing process so I could ease his concerns and give him a greater understanding of what was going on behind the scenes. Now that he has reached his goal of home ownership, he is asked to continue to work together so I can help, meaning Christine, the coach for Operation Hope. This is from our website of Operation Hope and our testimonials. So I can help him manage the additional expenses from becoming a homeowner and make sure he stays on track with his budget. Recently gave us this feedback. It was a great experience working with Operation Hope and Christine becoming a homeowner. She helped me bring my credit score up to substantially and walked me through the process. She answered my questions as they came up. It put me in my mind at ease when I started getting stressed the heck out. The heck out, I put that part in. I'm so glad I listened to her advice to keep going and didn't give up on the process. I love my new home. So this Delta employee is a homeowner because of Operation Hope and their partner, their sponsor, Delta Airlines, which was their employer in this example. Um, this Some of these stories are just really long, so I don't want to take up valuable time describing them here. But just go to the Operation Hope website and check out these testimonials. These folks look like you, sound like you, have stories like you, and it makes it hard, really, to say that it can't be you, and that somehow you're gonna be locked out of this system because their stories are not so different from yours. So whether it was um, somebody with this person that was 700 credit score, you want to go to 786, or somebody with 500 want to go to 625. Same, same, uh, same journey. Here's somebody who I love this story because it's it's somebody I met through Bishop T.D. Jakes. She heard this is Jamie Ray Wright heard me at Bishop T.D. Jakes International Leadership Conference. She had no idea that moment would become the catalyst of transforming her vision into a multi-million dollar reality that would change countless lives. She's a domestic violence survivor. Again, I'm not going to read the details of her story, but she had a coach, which was Pamela Sanford, a Hope Financial coach, and she became a strategic, really advisor to move her from sort of small thinking to big thinking, and she helped her get some grant funding and changed her whole mindset. And get this, she got a $4.1 million grant from the state of Oklahoma to build 13 homes for domestic violence survivors, Rainbows After Storms. Got an additional $250,000 grant to provide financial literacy. I love this. Home ownership coaching and other key supportive services for survivors and their children, Rainbows After Storms, and became a sustainable model that addresses not only just housing, but the holistic needs of families rebuilding their lives. And couldn't have done all that, she says, without her coach, Pamela, at Operation Hope. And now she's helping others help themselves. So, look, you can do this, right? Well, let's get busy and let's get cracking. And let me know the results of your dreaming with your eyes wide open. John O'Brien, this is Money and Wealth on the Black Effect Network and iHeartRadio. And this is the civil rights movement